in this session we're going to move on to the third object of Shamata practice. In fact, sometimes this practice is called Shamata without an object. This resting in awareness. Because with the, for example, the breath practice, we're being aware of the breath. The practice we did in the last session is we're aware of the mind. In this practice, we're turning awareness in upon itself and just knowing that we're aware. So we're not really focusing on any other object. So sometimes it's called Shamata with no object. Now, many people find this even more challenging than focusing on the breath or the mind. Not because it's too complicated, but because it's too simple. Because this practice involves basically doing nothing. We don't know how to do nothing. We always want to do something. So often when this practice is explained, people go, yeah, but what am I supposed to do? Tell me what I've got to do. Doing is the problem. Stop doing and you're in the practice. It's a matter of being rather than doing. All this practice is simply knowing that we're aware. That's it. So let's do a little 5-second experiment now of just knowing that we're aware, starting now. Was that difficult? Did you know you were aware, or were you fast asleep, caught up in distraction? Not difficult, is it? That's all we got to do, is just know that we're aware. Now, of course, in this practice, all sorts of things will still arise. Thoughts, sensations in the body, sounds, images, everything will still arise, of course. But in this practice, we're not interested in any appearance. We're not trying to block them, but we're not paying attention to them. So let them be there, they can be there, that's fine. We're just not interested in them. The only thing we're interested in is knowing that we're aware. That's it. So all you do is rest knowing that you're aware. Now, this, of course, is a Shamata practice. So like observing the mind and the breath, the goal of this practice is to develop a calm, clear, focused mind. But what are the side benefits or advantages of this specific practice is that if we can simply rest in that knowing that we're aware, what we notice is that our awareness, our mind is completely still and boundless, limitless. And if we can rest in that experience, we can make that our default mode. Now in daily life, our default mode is blah, 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 all day long. Obsessive, compulsive, blah, blah. And to operate effectively with that default mode is not easy. It doesn't go very well. Whereas if we can make our default mode is this stillness of awareness, that's a much better basis to then engage in daily life activities. And also, of course, simply resting in that stillness of awareness, we can intuitively come to an insight into the very nature of our own mind, which of course is Vipassana practice. So this Shamata practice is very much a bridge into Vipassana practice. So that's another great advantage with this practice. So I'd like to introduce this practice a little bit more by again reading from Alan Wallace's Attention Revolution, and then we'll do the meditation. So this is on page 131. He says the following. If you wish to continue in settling the mind in its natural state, practice we just did, this practice can take you all the way to the achievement of Shamata. But now I will present an alternative practice that you may find an even more potent way to balance your attention to perfection. Padmasambhava calls this technique the cultivation of Shamata without a sign. Padmasambhava, of course, was the great 8th century Indian master who first brought Buddhism to Tibet. In this context, the term sign refers to any object of attention that can be identified within the conceptual framework. The tactile sensations of the breath are so is the space of the mind and the mental events that arise within that space. In both those practices, the attention is directed to an object other than itself, and stability and clarity are cultivated in relation to that object. In the practice of Shamata without a sign, the attention is not directed to anything. It rests in its own nature, simply being aware of its own presence. Nominally, you could say that awareness takes itself as its object, but experientially, this practice is more a matter of taking no object. You simply let your awareness rest without any referent in its own innate luminosity and cognizance. While Padmasambhava presents this as a method for achieving shamatha, it is also an effective method for illuminating the nature of awareness itself, or in other words, vipassana practice. And then also he comments a little bit more on this practice on page 144. So let's have a look at that, and then we'll do the meditation. And he says, here are quintessential instructions by Padmasambhava on the practice of shamatha with no object apart from awareness itself. So now he's quoting directly from one of Padmasambhava's texts. He says, Padmasambhava says, vacantly direct your eyes in the space in front of you. So just like the previous practice, the recommendation here is to have the eyes open, resting in the space in front of us for the same reasons, for clarity, present moment, to break down that false sense of duality, and to as a help to transition to daily life. See that thoughts pertaining to the past, future and present, as well as wholesome, unwholesome and ethically neutral thoughts, together with all the causes, assembly and dispersal of thoughts of the three times, which is past, present and future, are completely cut off. So when he says cut off, he doesn't mean block thoughts. Cut off means not engaging in them, not focusing on them. He says, bring no concepts to mind. Let the mind be like a cloudless sky, be clear, empty, and even devoid of grasping, and settle into utter vacuity. By doing so, there arises the shamatha of joy, luminosity, and non-conceptuality. So that's the practice we're going to do. Anything not clear about the practice before we go to the meditation? You let the inner conversation do its own thing. We're not, and don't pay any attention to it. If it's there, okay, doesn't matter. It's like if we're at home and we are watching something on TV, and that's what we're interested in, but the neighbours are chatting next door and you can sort of hear them, you know, let them chat. That's okay. Doesn't matter. We don't care. Just the TV is just knowing that you're aware. That's it. Again, as a beginner, I think there was a question yesterday about commentary. You know, as a beginner, we need a little bit of commentary to remind us what to do. Of course, it's artificial activity, but it could be useful as a beginner. So if we keep reminding ourselves constantly, be aware, be aware, be aware, that'll become a bit of a problem. But as a beginner in this practice, maybe what's going to happen is we start and then we just completely go blank, space out. And then after a while we go, be aware. We go, oh, okay. And that could be helpful. But if we're constantly going, be aware, be aware, be aware, that's not helpful. That'd be like, you know, if you're driving your car and you constantly remind you, look in the mirror, look in the mirror, look in the mirror, and you're doing that all the time, you go crazy. Yeah. So same here. So, but as a beginner, if you're driving a car, you're learning, occasionally you need to have, look in the mirror. Oh yeah, I forgot to do that. But once you get in the habit, then of course you just drop that. So same here. You may need occasionally to remind yourself, be aware, but not too much, and then let it go.
What's the border between awareness and I usually, it's so pleasant that I want to sleep. What to do when I want to, feeling like I'm...
If you're watching an interesting program on TV, it's pleasant. Do you fall asleep? If it's very interesting, if it's super interesting, only because you're probably very tired. Yeah. So again here, we need to have enthusiasm for the practice to understand the benefits. Yeah. Of course, it's nice to be in this nice sort of. Oh yes, it's nice. But no, not fight. Just know, just sharpen, like the balance on. Particularly then, if you're finding yourself getting dull, when you're breathing in, just pay closer attention, sharpen the focus, and we're going to bring that into the meditation. Actually, this balancing, we're going to bring it into the practice.
It's not dullness. It's full. I feel like nice and content.
Good. All you need to do is keep that state very clearly. Okay, let's do the practice.